You're listening to the Mechanic.com.au podcast, Australia's #1 podcast for automotive service and repair professionals. This week's podcast is proudly brought to you by Narva, the vision to go further. I'm your host, Jason O, and joining us today, Warren Bedford, who is the category manager for Narva. How are you going today, mate?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
And you're calling us from lovely sunny Victoria, is that right?
Well, it's not that sunny today. It's a bit overcast, and we've had some showers last night.
Well, let's kick things straight into it. Tell us a little bit about you. What's your background, mate? How did you find your way into the automotive side of things?
I think it's like most of it, just playing around with cars and tinkering with them in our garage. Dad would always, coming from an engineering background, and we spent a lot of time playing around with go-karts and motorbikes and then leading into cars as we got a bit older.
Bit like that, isn't it? We've sort of come to the digital age via analog where our parents have brought us through, haven't they?
That's right.
Well, look, welcome to the show wherever you may be listening. Today's topic is driving lights. Let's get into it, Warren. Now, why do people need driving lights and light bars in Australia?
Yeah, good question. Well, I guess the way we look at it is any additional light will improve safety while you're driving. So when you're out driving on the highway and it's dark, there's a good chance animals might jump out in front of the car.
Yep.
There might be obstacles on the road that we're not aware of until we get to them. So any additional light we can put in front of the vehicle is going to give a much safer driving environment.
Well, lights offer us communication, vision and information. You know, they give us the opportunity to pull information into our brains. And we have these little hopping rodents called kangaroos that get quite big. And if you were looking for a reason, they would be it, wouldn't they?
That's exactly it, yeah.
Well, look, let's keep it on going. What about the best innovations in driving lights over the last few years? We've obviously come along in leaps and bounds. Tell us some of these innovations.
Absolutely. So driving lights traditionally were built using a halogen globe, like the ones found in our headlights. And then if we go back 5 or 10 years now, we've seen the introduction of LED lighting. And that's really taken over from the traditional halogen lighting, but also given designers of the lights a lot more scope to change the way that they're shaped, the way that the light performs, and introduce new products such as light bars, which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with.
Oh, they've really revolutionised how you have driving lights, aren't they?
Absolutely. You can package them into a much smaller product. So in terms of the height, a light bar can be fitted in a lot of places that traditional round lights just don't go.
The quintessential rally car look with the big 4 spotlights on the front has sort of really run its course, hasn't it, really?
I think it has, Even if you look at the vehicles that get used in the Baja sort of races now, they're all running light bars instead of round lights.
Yeah, and that absolutely giving everybody a retina burn in front of them. Let's talk about LEDs very quickly. The next step, obviously we've gone from halogen to LED. Is there a new technology on the horizon that's coming soon?
There is, and laser lighting has been around probably for a few years now, and some of the big car companies have dabbled in it.
Yep.
It's starting to emerge into our markets in the form of driving lights and light bars, but the technology is not really at the point where it offers a significant improvement. And it's quite expensive at this stage.
Yeah, okay.
So it's something that we're looking into, but it's got a little way to go before it's commercially viable and before it offers a performance benefit over the LED technology.
LEDs are just so efficient, aren't they? They really are.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of, the efficiency, what should people be looking for maybe when they're looking, for new lights or additional lighting at the front of the car? What would be some of the recommendations you'd be making?
I'd always ask people first what sort of driving they do. So if they're doing a lot of highway driving, they might want to go for some lights that focus the light down the road. But if the type of driving they're doing is more off-road and four-wheel driving, maybe something like a light bar that offers a lot of spread is what they're really after. So it depends a lot on the speed that you're doing as well.
Okay. So, I'm seeing a lot of people looking at that sort of longer penetration down the road. And LEDs can be focused for long distance as well as short-term light?
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the misconceptions is that LEDs are just for spread, but that's not the case.
Okay.
We can develop lights that will easily travel a kilometre down the road.
Outstanding.
And what we're finding is, if people really want to set up a four-wheel drive well, they'll put 2 types of lights on it. So some round lights for distance and then a light bar for spread. and having them independently switched will allow them to pick the best light for their situation.
Driving condition and so forth. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get a little bit technical here because this is something that I don't know and I'm always interested in learning new things. Tell me, what does the term 1 lux mean? It doesn't relate to Hiluxes, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It can be used on Hiluxes, but it's a term used to measure the distance of light. So usually 1 lux of light is enough to read a newspaper. So if you imagine you have a set of driving lights that will penetrate 500 metres down the road, that means at 500 metres in front of the vehicle, it's enough light to read a newspaper.
Okay. Well, if we're talking, down the road and we're talking short term as well, is there anything that you would say would be on average what people are using at the moment in regards to lux grading?
I always think that for most people, 500 metres is probably more than enough light to get you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
Some visible distance in front of your vehicle. So our typical headlights in our cars on high beam will probably give us 160 to 200 metres 1 lux distance. So if you get a good set of driving lights that can go out to 500 metres, that's going to give you an additional probably 2/3 of light.
Right.
And the only circumstances where people need more light than that is if you were driving maybe a big truck in the outback.
Yes.
And your stopping distance is a lot greater.
Yeah, okay.
So you might want to see a kilometre down the road in case there's an animal on the road and you need time to pull up and stop.
Yeah, of course. Well, what's the difference between raw and effective lumens? Is that connected to the lux rating?
It can be, yes. So lumens is really the measure of light coming out of any product. Raw lumens are a little bit like raw watts are when you're talking about car amplifiers. So it's a figure that's just made up based on the specifications of the LEDs.
Okay.
In the real world, it's not possible to get that much light out of them because you have thermal losses and you can't run the LEDs that hard in a form factor like a driving light or a light bar. So the only real measure of light is effective lumens. And that's something that can be done in a light laboratory. We have one here at Brown & Watson down in Melbourne. And that allows us to actually measure the exact amount of light that's coming out of a driving light or a light bar.
Right, okay. And you do that for classification when you're selling the product? So you do your research, work out what it's putting out, and then you can rate it accordingly?
Yeah, that's right. And we also do it to benchmark products as well. So we will assess products that are out on the market from our competitors, sometimes from our suppliers and their factories while we're developing products. It helps us to get an understanding of the quality of the light without having to actually go out into a dark paddock and turn it on.
Yeah, of course. Well, speaking of other products on the market, there obviously are a wide variety and quite a big gamut of products on the market. Some good, some not so good. What are the difference between maybe some of the bottom end range and the top end range in regards to quality and effectiveness?
Sure. I think it's the old rule of thumb, isn't it? The more money you spend, the better quality you expect from the product.
Yep.
So what we find is the cheaper lights will probably only last 6 or 12 months, and that's when the materials start to break down. And you may see some lights that the lenses are going yellow after a few months. That's because they're not made with very good quality materials and they're not getting protected from the harsh environments that we have in Australia. So one of the things that Narva's driving lights and light bars are built using high quality materials, and we always engineer them to suit our conditions here in Australia.
That was going to be my next question, because the Australian conditions are pretty ridiculous. When you think about, like if you were off-roading and camping and so forth, during the day you're going to get belted with the sun, and at night you're going to be frozen with the cold. It's got to really stand up across the board, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And, most of our driving lights have vents in them, so that allows the lights to breathe. They don't build up pressure inside.
Okay.
And if there is any condensation, that can evaporate through the back of the vent.
Well, we see, a range of different styles. Obviously, we talked a little bit earlier on about the light bars, and now we're starting to see what we'll call large-scale light bars, which are multiple stacks. How is that recommended? I mean, is the heat transfer still viable in that sort of scenario when you, say, got 3 or 4 light bars stacked on top of each other?
I think the bigger problem is where people mount them on the vehicle. So if they're putting them on the front of their vehicle, it's probably in front of their radiator, and that would be blocking airflow into the radiator. So it's probably not something we'd recommend putting a stack of light bars on the front. Another good spot could be up on the roof basket of a four-wheel drive.
Yes.
So we find that's a really good spot to put, 2 20-inch light bars and give that huge amount of light that everyone seems to love.
We're seeing also a big rise in what I'll call side and rear mini light bars. Tell us a little bit about, the interest in that sort of lighting.
I think, again, it gets back to just getting as much light as possible on the road. And by aiming lights around the vehicle, you can potentially get up to 180 degrees of light in front of your vehicle while you're driving. And that just makes it safer, particularly on outback roads where there might be kangaroos or wombats about to jump out onto the road.
So, you do not want to hit a wombat. You
don't want to hit a wombat, and you probably don't want to hit a kangaroo either. But if you have some light pointing out to the side, that will give a bit more of an indication when there's an animal about to jump out onto the road, and hopefully give you enough time to pull up and not hit it.
We see a lot of vehicles during the day with light bars on where you don't, and lighting systems where you can't really see the effectiveness of them. You can just look at them in traffic and, he's got a light at the back basket and the front and the side. If you wanted to see the difference in the lights before purchasing them, what would be some advice maybe you could suggest from a Narva point of view? Where could we go? What could we see? Yeah,
well, I guess the first thing would be go and have a look at the lights in person at one of our distributors or our retailers. So Narva products are pretty much in most auto retail stores. But we also have a really good tool that we call the VR experience.
Okay.
And what we did was we went out and we filmed all our driving lights in closed conditions on 3 different road types. So we've got a highway, we've got off-road driving, and then dirt roads. And we got all of our driving lights and light bars and filmed them using a 360-degree camera. And that then allowed us to put together the VR experience.
Yeah.
Which in short is virtual reality. So you can put a set of goggles on and experience exactly what the lights are like before having to outlay your hard-earned cash on them.
I'm going to throw a bit of a different question at you. I've got a couple of old, classic cars in my garage at home. Can you get retro systems for the older cars?
For the headlights themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really good range of driving light inserts. So some of the older vehicles use like a 5 3/4 or a 7-inch driving light insert. And we have LED upgrade versions of those available. But
great.
Even a set of freeform headlight inserts will make the world of difference to an old vehicle.
They certainly do. And in addition to obviously the lighting side of things, Narva carry a full range of support products and fixtures and fittings, don't they?
That's right, yeah. Our product range is vast, and we have lots of different categories of products, including consumables for the workshop, such as cable, heat shrink, cable ties, terminals, lots of things that, both auto electrical mechanics and mechanics alike are likely to use on vehicles. And
A to Z.
Exactly, yeah. And if people can't find it, please contact us because we'll always look into it and see if we can get hold of it.
Develop a new product. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show and chatting us today, Warren. It's certainly been very informative. And, if our listeners want to follow up any questions about anything we've discussed today, they can, of course, go ahead and reach out to Narva via the Mechanic.com.au community.
Yep.
And now, if you're not already a member of the Mechanic.com.au, join the thousands of other mechanics around Australia who are earning more, learning more, networking more at Mechanic.com.au, the online home of Australia's mechanics, by creating a free account today. Did you enjoy that one, Warren? You enjoyed coming on and having a chat about all things enlightening. Did you like that pun?
That was great. Very nice pun.
Well, look, thanks for tuning. Yeah, thanks for tuning in to the Mechanic.com.au podcast, Australia's #1 podcast for automotive service and repair professionals. If you want to unlock a whole host of trade-only resources, including our private community, competitions, education content, job opportunities, training, troubleshooting, and much, much more, go ahead and create a free account now at Mechanic.com.au. Thanks for listening. Keep the lights burning, and we'll see you at the next podcast coming very soon.